Welcome, brother, to our presentation tonight. It's entitled Mountaindale's Intervening Time. So we are going to discuss this presentation by Glenroy Matthews. Now, Brother Glenroy is with Mountaindale, as many of you know, and he's been there for many years. Mountaindale, just a brief history, Mountaindale, as we know, came from Salem. And Brother Matthews, soon after Mountaindale became part of the Mountaindale organization. And they have this teaching that promotes the idea of an intervening time. Now, what that means is that their teachings go as follows. The sealing of the 144,000 takes place prior to Ezekiel 9. And we'll get more into the actual teaching itself, but that's basically the intervening time. In other words, the sealing happens, and then for a period of time, it happens that Ezekiel 9 happens later. All right, so we just want to make sure that everybody understands this intervening time. And is this something the Rod teaches? That's the question. Does the Rod really teach this? So we're going to go into it now, and please pause the video. Claim the promise of John 16:13, and he shall guide us into all truth. Let's begin. Now, in this presentation, Brother Matthews says it more than a few times. He says, this is very clear. So in other words, his idea of intervening time is very clear according to the references that he wants to show us. But we ask the question, is it very clear? Well, we're going to get into that now. They're basing their idea mostly on 13 Symbolic Code, number 34, page 10. And they say that this is part of the message, as they believe the new codes are part of the the inspired writings that Brother Houteff made, even though Brother Houteff did not pull them out of the file. He left them in there, and so Florence Houteff, after the passing of Brother Houteff, decided on her own authority to bring them out of the file and publish them. Now we're going to post a link on the New Code Report, so this is a whole different study, but accordingly, the fact is that they believe that that's part of the Golden Bowl, so therefore they're at liberty to quote whatever quote they would like to present from the new codes. And so let's read this real quick. The confederacy that we're studying this afternoon commences before the loud cry and before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. It is not the image of the beast, for this association precedes the image of the beast, and the confederacy is formed when the nations are girding themselves for war. Put another way, the confederacy will commence after the sealing and perhaps just before the slaughter. Moreover, it is in the time when the Christian nations are united that the woman Babylon will sit on the 7 heads, Revelation 17:9, depicting also the union of the churches under Babylon, 13 Symbolic Code, number 34, page 10. Now, there's a couple things we're going to talk about here in this specific quote. One of the reasons why we do not believe that the new codes were Brother Houteff's writings, at least much of it cannot be, because you notice that in the very first sentence, the prophet makes, according to them, this is what Brother Houteff said, that it commences before the loud cry and before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. So it's making a definite statement. It commences before the loud cry and before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. Now, just a few sentences later, he says, put another way, the confederacy will commence after the sealing and perhaps just before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. So this is a little bit confusing in the language. At first he says it does happen before Ezekiel 9, and he says perhaps it will happen. So, brethren, this is one thing to highlight, that we believe Sister Houteff was indeed taking liberty to put things into the new codes and claim they were Brother Houteff's writings. Now, in this reference, as we pointed out, this is where they get the intervening time, because they say that, okay, see, they're going to have a slaughter. They're going to have the sealing, and then after that, a ways down, they're going to have the Ezekiel 9 intervening time. So let's continue. Now, the chart of end time events has been produced by Mountaindale. Now, when we first came into the message, this was included in our package. And thank God we saved it, because I get the requests all the time for the brethren that they don't have a copy of this. Nobody seems to have any. I don't know if Mountaindale quit putting it out or what, but we saved it, and this is their chart of events. Now, it's a timeline, and you take a look over here, and the close of the ceiling, 144,000, happens at this line, right? Now, all these events happen between now and this line, which is the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. So you see the Assyrian Confederacy, the gigantic war, oppose the Confederacy, 42 months. All right, brethren? So they're claiming the sealing happens here, and 42 months later, you get the Ezekiel 9, right? So this, like I said before, this is very concerning when we know the message as written and authorized and published by the prophet. Very concerning. Now, when we go over to, we're going to go over to Brother Matthew's teachings on this in a bit, but we want to bring something to your attention. This is Rod and Basic 101 teaching, and this is one of the many quotes, 34 references, in 2 Symbolic Code number 56, page 10. The angel of Revelation 7, who prophetically sealed the 144,000, is the same as the one of Ezekiel 9, who marked those who sigh and cry for the abomination in the church, says the Spirit of Prophecy. This mightiest of angels, Revelation 7:2, has in his hand the seal of the living God, or of him who alone can give life, who can inscribe upon the foreheads the mark or inscription, to whom shall be granted immortality, eternal life. It is the voice of this highest angel that had the authority to command the 4 angels to keep in check the 4 winds until this work was performed, until he should give the summons to let them loose. This sealing of the servants of God is the same that was shown to Ezekiel in vision. Testimonies and Ministers, page 444 and 445. This quote can be found in 2 Symbolic Code number 56, page 10. Now, keep in mind, brethren, this same reference here is referred to 34 times in the rod, and they always confirm the fact that the sealing of the 144,000, Revelation 7, and Ezekiel 9 are one and the same. Okay? So when we see the preponderance of evidence, it's very, very hard to go against that. Why would the rod continually say they're one and the same? And if they're not, then you must throw out these 34 references, and you're making a mockery of the message. Now, let's get out of this site here, and we're going to come back to it. We're going to go over to Brother Matthews, and we're going to let you hear yourself what Brother Matthews has to say about this intervening time.
Now, let us focus on the third confederacy, the Assyrian Confederacy. When does the prophet say the Assyrian Confederacy will commence? Let us read 13 Symbolic Code, number 3 and 4, page 10. 13 Symbolic Code number 3 and 4, page 10. It says, the confederacy that we are studying this afternoon commences before the loud cry and before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. It is not the image of the beast, for this association precedes the image of the beast. And the confederacy is formed when the nations are girding themselves for war. Now that is very clear, isn't it? The confederacy commences before the loud cry and before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. This is Brother Hotef writing. He gave this presentation twice. And he's saying that the confederacy comes before Ezekiel 9. it comes before the loud cry. Okay? It is not the image of the beast. He explains further. He says, put another way, the confederacy will commence after the sealing and perhaps just before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. After the sealing and perhaps just before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. Moreover, it is in the time when the Christian nations are united that the woman Babylon will sit on the 7 heads, depicting also the union of the churches under Babylon. So very clear, Brother Huddeff gave this study twice, and he is saying that this confederacy commences after the sealing. In other words, the sealing comes to an end, right? The sealing comes to an end, and then the confederacy begins, okay? And before Ezekiel 9. We also see that there is a period of time after the sealing and before Ezekiel 9. In other words, the sealing is finished, and there is some time between Ezekiel 9, before Ezekiel 9 takes place. How much time? Well, we do not know. The prophet did not say. He did not say. So, but now, so we can't really say exactly how long that period of time is going to be. We can only say what is revealed and what was presented. Now that we understand when the confederacy takes place, according to Brother Huddeff, let us look a bit closer into the intervening time. Because he says here, the confederacy will commence after the sealing and perhaps just before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. So that's, again, we don't know this time, how long it's going to be, but he is saying that there's some time there. And we want to take a look at that because Brother Terry, in his presentation, says that I have it written down here. He says that 13 symbolic code, what we're reading here is in conflict with track 1, page 38. There's no intervening period of time. So let us take a moment and go through this. Okay. 13 symbolic code numbers 3 and 4, page 10. He says, Brother Terry quoted this as well, so that's why I'm going back to it. It says, after the sign and crying ones were marked, which is not to be understood as being consummated. Sorry, this is, I got the reference mixed up, please forgive me. This is track 1, okay? I failed, because I was copying and pasting, I failed to correct the reference. But it says, track 1, page 38, it says, after the sign and crying ones were marked, which is not to be understood as being consummated in its entirety worldwide, before the slain follows everywhere.
Let's pause right here, brother. You notice that he's reading something where the rod says is not to be understood. Now that's a definite statement. It's not, well, maybe you can think about it, or, it's a possibility. No, it is not to be understood as being consummated in its entirety before the slain follows anywhere. So this shows that the slaying is going to happen during Ezekiel 9, and it won't be started and completed until Ezekiel 9. This is very clear now, and we'll get more into that, but we just want to bring that point.
Slaughter completed, and the matter reported, the Lord spake unto the man clothed with linen, and said, go in between the wheels, even under the cherubim, and fill thine hand with coals of fire from between the cherubims, and scatter them over the city. What this statement seems to be saying is that the slaughter may begin before the sealing is completed. Now, you cannot base a theory on one statement, so let us look at...
Okay, brethren, so you heard Brother Matthews make his point about the intervening time. So let's go back here to the other site, and let's continue. All right, so he quoted track 1, page 38, 39. And Then we have another quote here. The prophet Ezekiel also was given a vision of the final purification of the church. His prophecy reveals that everyone who fails to receive the mark or seal is to fall under the slaughter of the 5 men, and that all, old and young, both maids and little children and women, will all perish together. Testimonies 5, page 211, Ezekiel 9:6, as typified by Achan's destruction, the ensample. The unassailable sequence of facts only bulwarks the spirit prophecy's position that the sealing of the servants of God is the same that was shown to Ezekiel. Track 4, page 33. Very clear, brother. Now this is very clear. So there's 34 references confirming that the sealing and the slaughter of Ezekiel 9 are one and the same, the weight of evidence. So when we understand that, it's so powerful and great weight, right? Great weight of evidence. Now, the message, this is just a couple of them. There's quite a few more, but it talks about the weight of evidence. Those who desire to doubt will have plenty of room. God does not propose to remove all occasion for unbelief. He gives candid evidence, which must be carefully investigated with a humble mind and teachable spirit, and all should decide from the weight of evidence. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 5, page 675. Some who are anxious to risk present truth on the weight of one inspired statement seems to say or imply are thereby presumptuously or very ignorantly overlooking the weight of evidence. Others are doing this through short-sightedness, while still others are doing it to prop up certain cherished ideas of their own. The re-answer, page 41 and 42. Now, we certainly believe from understanding the whole picture of this subject that Mountaindale, and Brother Matthews there, is propping up cherished ideas of their own, because they rightly say that yes, you cannot just take one statement and build your whole idea upon one statement. That's true. But when you have one statement and then you have 34 others, okay, 34 other confirming statements, brethren, confirming statements that Ezekiel 9 and sealing of 144,000 are one in the same. You can't escape that. It is tremendously weightful. And so Brother Matthews and the teachers at Mountaindale are conveniently throwing out this counsel. And we cannot do that, brother. We have to go by the weight of evidence. So this is pretty powerful. Now, we didn't show it, but in his presentation, he wanted to tell us that the track 1, page 38, is negated by the teaching of the 10 virgins. In other words, the 5 virgins are the ones that, as we know, turned down the message, and therefore his teachings is so convoluted, brethren, that I don't even really know how to explain it. But regardless of this construction of his ideas, this still doesn't go and give him the weight of evidence. No, not at all, because he has to deal with the preponderance, and he's not dealing with it, and we should. So our key point is the time of the sealing is 7 days, half-hour silence, Revelation 8:9. That's the length of Ezekiel 9. So when we understand that Ezekiel 9 is the same as the sealing, then you have to place it within the 7-day period, because that is Ezekiel 9. All right? You can't say Ezekiel 9 is a lot longer period, because that's making mockery of the message. It's half-hour silence, 7 days. So right there, he's very much off. And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about a space of half an hour. The sealing must take place within 7 days if we are to say the sealing and the 144,000 and the slaughter of Ezekiel 9 are one and the same. So, brethren, this is so concrete, so clear, that just be aware of this trickery. Our brethren should be willing to investigate in a candid way every point of controversy. If a brother is teaching error, those who are in responsible positions ought to know it And if he's teaching truth, they ought to take their stand at his side. We should all know what is being taught among us. If it is truth, we need it. We are all under obligation to God to know what he sends us. He has given directions by which we may test every doctrine, to the law and to the testimony. If they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. Gospel Workers, page 300. Now, brethren, we wanted to bring this to tonight because we have to know what is being taught among us. And we see very clearly that Mountaindale subscribes 100%, I'm talking about the leaders, 100% to this intervening time. And that's not what the message tells us. So we have to be very careful because as we quote many times, let me get that quote for you. It is in 1TG, 1TG 46, page 43 and 44. The only ones that will endure to the end will be those who carefully watch their steps from being either carried away by his additions or by his subtractions from the works of inspiration. So if we want to endure to the end, brethren, we can't be adding and subtracting like you just heard from Mountaindale. They want to say, yes, we have an intervening time, when the message is very clear. There's no such thing. So we wanted to bring that to your attention tonight to make sure that you understand what is being taught among us and stand with the truth. Don't be fooled by these trickeries and these false constructions that some of the brethren are bringing us. So until next time, may the Lord continue to guide you into all truth. Amen.